Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call this meeting of the Senate Committee on Education to order, and the first order of business is roll. So please, Madam Secretary.
Senator Buck. Senator Cruz Crawford. Senator Doñate. Senator Donaro Loop. Senator Rogish. Senator Titus. Chair Taylor.
And I am here. Thank you so much. And welcome to our committee. I want to go over, we do have a quorum. Everyone's here and we do have a quorum for the record. I do want to go over just a little bit of the housekeeping as we have a full house and some of you have not had the pleasure of joining us for an education committee meeting as of yet. This was an easy one. Please make sure you silence your electronic devices. Don't be that person, right? To testify, please make sure you sign in at the table over there by the door and provide a business card if you have one to the committee secretary. Also, when testifying, make sure you turn your microphone on and clearly state your name and spell your name and also state your affiliation for the record if you have one. And I will remind you whenever you speak, if you forget to identify yourself, I may do a quick interruption and just ask you please state your name so that we can have that. We want our records, our minutes, and so on to be accurate. Public comment will be at the end of the meeting, and it may be provided in several different ways. You can do it in person right here in Carson City, and many of you are here. And many of you are here, or you can do it in Las Vegas in person, and we do have a couple of people in the audience there. And then also you can do it by phone, and I will give you the phone number right before we do it, because if I give it to you now, you won't remember. So I'll give you the phone number for those who may want to call in so that they can give public comment as well. If by chance public comments will be limited to 2 minutes each, and if by chance you don't get a chance to finish your comment, or if there's something more, then you are invited to submit your full comments in writing. And when you come up here, then you can just briefly summarize them in your spoken testimony. And for those who are presenting, if you have a handout for the committee, a copy must be emailed to the committee manager at least 24 hours before the meeting, and then you must also bring 10 copies for the public. And then remember, this is a policy committee meeting. We know there's a lot of overlap often with the finances and so on, but we stick to the policy piece, and we let the finance committee, chaired by my vice chair, take on anything that has to do with the finances. And then also, just as a quick reminder, I know we haven't been in session for a while. We do for security purposes. Please discourage you. Please do not approach the dais if you want to speak to one of us. We come out there all the time. Call us down or whatever, and that way we make sure everybody stays safe. Also, committee members, you'll see most of us, if not all of us, have our laptops out. Please do not take that as a sign of disrespect or inattention. We view handouts and other options and other items as we listen to you. And I will do everything in my power to make sure this hearing is fair for all and that everybody gets a chance. Almost lastly, we only have 120 days, and this may make it necessary to limit comments on testimony on either side of an issue. And again, I'll do my very, very best to make sure that we have a chance to hear every side equally, but 120 days goes fast. And then also, since we're beginning, we have a couple of members of our committee who have not sat on the education committee before. So some of these are early reports and so on, or maybe repetitive for some of you. So just hang in there and bear with us so that we can make sure this isn't repetitious. But I want to make sure all of our committee members have all the information that they need so that we can make the decisions on the things that we will consider. Okay, that's it. Today on our agenda, we will have 2 presentations today. And just as a reminder to our presenters, they already know this, bill presentations or informational presentations are limited to 15 minutes from your end, and then we'll open it up for questions from the committee. We'll give questions at the end of your presentation, and then again, we'll have comments when we do have a bill presentation at the end of this meeting as well. And we'll also make sure that we have time for opposition and support and neutral. Okay, our first presentation, we have our friends from NCHE, the Nevada System of Higher Education, in the room. Thank you so much, Madam Chancellor. Then just remember to state your name for the record.
Absolutely. So for the record, Patricia Charlton, last name Charlton, Nevada System of Higher Education Chancellor. So, wonderful. And good.
Looks
Sorry,
like she needs
I
to
need
phone a
little
friend.
Technical assistance. So, all right, wonderful. Thank you so much, and what an honor it is to be here with you this afternoon. And again, for the record, I am Patricia Charlton, Chancellor, Nevada System of Higher Education. We are very grateful for the time today to share this State of the System of Higher Education presentation to the Senate Education Committee. This provides us an opportunity to take a moment and assess where our system has been, specifically our institutions, and in terms of our core mission, producing college graduates. Today I'm going to focus on two primary purposes. First is a look to reflect on how far we have come in the number of decades that we're going to provide information for, and then also is to identify where there is additional work to be done. All of this is framed relative to the mission of the Nevada System of Higher Education as prescribed by our Board of Regents. Okay. I am really struggling technically today, so sorry about that. So this is our formal mission at NSHE that is codified in our Board of Regents handbook. It is a very long mission statement, as you can tell, but our primary focus is on graduating students, particularly for the benefit of the state of Nevada. There are other elements in our mission, such as research, which we are very proud of, and the fact that we have two, not just one, but two R1 institutions, and that is really a testament to the support of this legislature. So the focus on building that research profile has been one that we have been very committed to, and we would be happy to come back at another time and talk specifically about our research mission. Today I'm going to again focus on the primary role of educating and graduating students. Sorry, went the wrong way. So again, just kind of focusing on our strategic goals of the Nevada System of Higher Education: enrollment, graduating students, our workforce contribution, and funding, which is something that we'll be talking about throughout the session, but not in this committee today. So first, access. Access refers to the opportunities that students have to participate in higher education. The most fundamental measure of access is enrollment, as it is a direct measure of the number of students that are participating. Our institutions have a clear objective, and that is to increase participation in higher education. So how are we doing? So this first chart gives a look over since 1970 of how Nevada has looked over the last 50 years as we compare to the national level. The graph shows post-secondary enrollment per 100,000 population for Nevada, which is the blue line, and for the US is the red line. This enrollment is for our degree-granting institutions that report to IPEDS. And so for Nevada, that also includes private institutions that also participate in IPEDS. We have more private institutions today than we did in 1970, and we also have more institutions within the Nevada System of Higher Education than we did 50 years ago. Ideally, we would like to see the blue line, those participating in Nevada, above the red line. Absent that ideal, we are doing better as a state relative to the nation when those lines come closer together. It is also interesting to note that in 1980, there were 8 institutions serving Nevada reporting to IPEDS. However, today, or in 2022, there were 37 institutions, 7 of which were NSHE. In other words, while the state is getting bigger, because we have so many more institutions, you'd expect that we would also be serving a higher percentage of that population per 100,000. But you have seen, as you can tell from the graph, we have made some, we are not moving that line as close together, but we have some benefits that we've seen recently. So now I want to show you specifically the Nevada System of Higher Education enrollments. In the prior years, and as you've said, some have served on this committee before, you've seen different variations of this slide. But what this shows you is that the system really reached our peak enrollment in terms of enrollment in 2010, as Nevada was coming out of the Great Recession. During prior periods of economic downturn, enrollments in post-secondary education typically have increased at high levels, particularly also at our community college, where the opportunity to retool skill sets or seek new pathways was often sought. On a quick historical note of the Great Recession, as a nation, that typically is defined as the period from December of 2007 to June of 2009. However, Nevada, given the nature of our economy, was a little slower to recover and essentially was still in a recession in 2010. As is common during an economic downturn, as I mentioned, many individuals returned to college to obtain training, and which is exactly what we saw at that time. Another year that is important for us is also going to be 2020, and this is the peak of the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic had severe ramifications for our enrollment recovery post the Great Recession, and particularly at our community colleges. And this is a national trend, not just specific to Nevada. So as we look now at our sector enrollment, our sector is based on 2-year institutions and then also our 4-year institutions. All of the enrollment data in this presentation is coming from IPEDS, so there is a little bit of a lag in the manner in which data is reported. We do not go back to 1970, however, we do have the baseline of 1980 for IPEDS purposes. From 1980 to the Great Recession, the majority of our enrollment within NSHE was within our community colleges. And you see that in the red line that represents those community colleges. And it was above the blue line representing our 4-year institutions. That is driven largely in part to CSN, which for decades was our largest institution. This all changed, however, during the pandemic when the community colleges enrollments, and again, this was happening nationally, continued to decline and still has not recovered from the pre-pandemic levels. However, what is wonderful to note is that all of our community colleges are experiencing enrollment growth. The following table is just a snapshot of that comparison from 1980 to 2023. And again, this is all IPEDS level data, and you can see where the institutions grew. And while 2010 really was an anomaly in that year, all of our institutions are continuing to grow, as I will be able to share additional data for FY24. So a takeaway and a quick recap of what we see in our enrollment. Our universities exhibited extreme resilience following the recession, and Nevada State has had steady and strong growth since the recession and up to the pandemic. It has been a different story for our community colleges, which realized enrollment declines, but again, are recovering at a nice pace and in some cases having some astronomical growth. So now let's move on and look at the enrollment of our historically underrepresented students, which falls under our strategic goal of closing the achievement gap. We'll begin first by looking at NSHE relative to the nation in terms of the distribution of students enrolled by race and ethnicity. The blue bars represent the distribution of NSHE students. So if you add them up together, they will total 100%. And the red bars is at the national level. You can see clearly that as a system, our enrollment of underserved populations, particularly Hispanic, Asian, and 2 or more races, exceed the nation. So now let's look at our general population of the state of Nevada. This is a distribution of Nevada's population as identified from the state demographer. It is important to note that NSHE uses race and ethnicity categories as defined by the federal government and used in IPEDS reporting, which does include 2 or more races. That is different from the state demographer. So with that said, from this you can see that as of 2023, Nevada is essentially a 50-50 majority-minority state. However, when you look at NSHE and do a little bit deeper dive, you can see that NSHE crossed the 50-50 distribution a decade ago in 2014. And as of today, we are a minority-majority serving system, and we are very proud of that work, meaning that a majority, or 64.5% of our student population are from historically underrepresented populations. It's one thing to see the change over time when looking at our historical enrollments, but what does that look like when we look at the relative race and ethnic categories? So this next slide compares the race and ethnic distribution of the system from fall of 2014, when we began as that 50-50, to where we were in fall of 2023, when we were at a 65-35% system. It is clear from this that the greatest gains in enrollment distribution have been in Hispanic students, followed by the 2 or more categories. But the slide does note that we have additional work to do. So a takeaway in this area is that over the last decade, the greatest enrollment increase for historically underrepresented populations occurred in Hispanic, Asian, and 2 or more races categories. But in an era when we moved well into a minority-majority status, we have seen declines in individuals being left behind, particularly our American Indian or Alaska Natives, and our Black or African Americans, and our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders. Unfortunately, these are the categories that we already had historically low enrollment and continues to be a challenge. We have work to do here. So the good news that we have on this last slide is that we've covered a lot of ground, and as such, I just want to give a quick recap. Our 4-year institutions are all doing well and are holding steady in terms of enrollment and growing. They survived, and in some cases, like Nevada State University, thrived coming out of the recession and the pandemic. Our community colleges struggled a bit, but are doing really well in their resiliency and moving forward. And finally, for the system, we have significantly moved the needle on the enrollment of our historically underrepresented populations, but we have work to do. Next, on a positive note, this is the fun part, is let's talk about educational attainment, student success. Our core mission is to graduate students. So educational attainment is the measure of the education level of the state's population. When we as a state joined Complete College America over a decade ago, this was a metric that we as a system often refer to as it developed into various strategic plans. Similar to the enrollment of students per 100,000 population, ideally, we would like to see the blue line above the red line, or at least have those lines be closer together. So that said, it is very difficult to move the needle. Nevada has followed the nation in terms of a growing percentage of our population with a bachelor's degree or higher. In 22 years, we've gone from an 18.2% graduation to 27.3%. That is significant. However, we do still lag across the nation. And I would say that that work is because of the work that we have done with the legislature on outcomes. The most often cited measure of student success is an institution's graduation rate. So that said, the graduation rate is a good measure for some institutions, but not for all. The standard IPEDS graduation rate is the percentage of first-time, full-time, degree-seeking students that graduate within 150% of normal time. So for a bachelor's degree, that's 6 years. For an associate's degree, that's 3 years, and 1.5 years for a certificate of achievement. The problem with this rate is that cohort, again, first-time, full-time, and degree-seeking, is more prominent at a 4-year institution than at a community college, where the traditional student is more likely to be part-time, work full-time, and may also be a transfer student. Either criteria, which excludes them from being counted in the standard IPEDS cohort. That said, more students at our universities are full-time, and so the standard IPEDS graduation rate tends to be a more decent measure for them. In today's presentation, I'm going to look at the standard IPEDS rate, and we'll also look at the outcomes measure for community colleges, with the goal of providing you with the most accurate picture possible of our improvements in student success. Because over that last decade or more, NSHE, along with your support, has made significant strides. So let's start with the universities and look back at graduation rates over the last 20 years. Increasing graduation rates is more challenging than simply churning out more graduates, because they have to fall within that cohort in order to be counted and make the difference in the rate. As such, this and the next slide are intended to show the improvements made during that time when our board, in concert with the legislature, shift from an input to an output-based funding formula, sending a very clear mission to our institutions: graduating students matters and funding will be connected. The improvements for all of the universities is clear here. UNR's recent jump to 62.4% now aligns with the national average. UNLV's graduation rate increased by 12%, and for the size of that institution is phenomenal. And Nevada State actually didn't have a graduation rate in the early years as they were brand new. Today has a graduation rate of over 31%, and And that is a significant growth as you look at where they were in 2013 in just 10 years. So next, let's look at the community college rate. Again, this is a similarly dramatic picture. However, it is important to keep in mind that this cohort or the denominator in that rate calculation is relatively small to the overall population, as again, it's only capturing that first-time, full-time degree-seeking student. For the cohort used in the 2023 graduation rate, the students accounted for are only 7% of the total college enrollment. That means that over 90% of our community college students are non-traditional and are not included in that cohort. However small the cohort, the increases are quite significant. So let's start with CSN. Now, what is not included on the slide is that in 2001, CSN's graduation rate was a mere 1%. 1% of that cohort. But now, if you look, 17.9%. That is an astronomical increase. The same thing as you look across for each of our institutions and highlighting, for example, Western Nevada College going from 20% in 2003 to just under 37% in 2023. At this point, you've heard me mention that the standard IPEDS rate does a disservice to the community colleges, in that it doesn't capture the majority of their students. So we have what's also called the outcomes measure, and this expands the cohort, or the denominator, in the IPEDS rate. It essentially includes part-time and transfer students that are excluded from IPEDS, and it also tracks those students over a longer period of time, over an 8-year period, and identifies those students who at 8 years are still enrolled in the institution or at another institution. Our goal is just to get them across the finish line. I'm not going to review the outcomes measure for the universities because it is not as nearly significant as it is for the community colleges. So this slide compares at that sector level, or for all the colleges combined, the outcomes from the 2009 cohort and the 2015 cohort as well. And so what is striking about this slide is the obvious improvement between the two cohorts from 19% graduating in 8 years to over 35%. Again, in an era where there was a focus from the board and the state on the funding formula, which was driven on outcomes, this is a huge accomplishment. And finally, this last slide on student success looks at the raw numbers of graduating students. So these are the students that are ready to join the Nevada workforce. Here, I'd also like to highlight, again, CSN with a 112.6% increase in completers during a time when enrollments have declined, a strong sign of the shift in outcomes. And then also look at TMCC, 118.2%. It compares, again, the number of completers in 2011-12 to a decade later in 2023-24. A 62.3% increase is pretty darn good. So you can see from the slides so far, we are better today than ever before at our core mission of graduating students to support Nevada. That's not to say that there is not work to be done, but it is important to take a moment and appreciate how far that we have come. You can also see clearly that incentives matter, and where our funding formula was tied directly to outcomes, it made a difference. The state shift in the formula to those made a difference, particularly in this last decade. So next, let's go back to our mission of graduating students to support Nevada's workforce. So let's see how we're doing. The obvious place to start is with areas of focus for the state that have been identified as critical: teachers and nurses. Going back 2 decades, the legislature has made known its desire for more nurses. And even in the 2023 session, we received additional funding to support the expansion of capacity in our nursing programs. And the same thing can be said for our teachers. The state is always in need of teachers, and you have been very supportive of that mission. So our other question is whether or not our students are staying here when they finish. I want to discuss some of the data limitations that we do have with our data as far as whether or not a student is working within the field that they graduated with. We know today if our graduates are working in Nevada the year immediately following graduation, but what we don't know is if they're working specifically in that area of a field. So for example, someone could graduate as a nurse, but they could be doing hospital administration, a teacher could graduate with a teaching credential, but they could be working in administration. So that's a little bit of the challenge that we have with our data. Despite that drawback in the matter, it is important to know that a significant percentage of our students who graduate with degrees in education and nursing remain in the state, and they work immediately following graduation. 85.8% in education and 81.2% in nursing, in healthcare. So what does it look like for some of our other top graduates? Here you can see that graduates in other fields like engineering, engineering technology, computer science, and information systems, for example, do not have the same amount of retention in Nevada. So for example, a computer and information sciences and support services graduate is only about 69.8% likely to still be working in Nevada. So as we go back to the mission, contributing to an educated and trained workforce, no doubt we are meeting that need. I'd also like to add that having the data to back that statement up is significant as well. We have fabulous data dashboards at the NSHE website, and we encourage you to go and look at all of the host of information that we have. All of this workforce data is also on our website and available to you and to the community at large. That's part of our real primary focus in transparency and making sure that all the information is available. So hopefully this presentation, I know we had 15 minutes, leaves you with a better of appreciation of where we have been. I could have gone on for about an hour or two, but I knew I was capped. That we have more graduates than ever, that we are rebounding from the recession and from the pandemic, and that we are here to provide that support for Nevada. But it should also give you a moment of pause to appreciate that our community colleges in particular have had a very difficult time with enrollment challenges, which feeds that pipeline to graduation. Our universities have achieved a monumental task of both, not one, but both of them being R1, and that work is vital and important to our economic development and diversification in Nevada. So with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, and so I'm available for questions, and then we also have representatives from each of our institutions that are available to answer any specific questions, either here or in Las Vegas.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Charlton. And we gave you 20 minutes, because that's what we said originally, and you went like 22.
I think it was the technical difficulty.
Okay. Touche. Well, thank you so much. That was a very comprehensive presentation, and we do have a couple of questions, and so we're going to go. We'll start with Senator Cruz Crawford, then we'll go to Dr. Titus.
Thank you, Chair. Feels like a reunion here. Okay, so let's get down to business so we respect everyone's time. First of all, I love NSHE. I think we need to just take a moment to realize how great it is that we have a system here within Nevada. We have one of the most easy to transfer to different institutions within any other state, and we have some of the most affordable tuition. And we have invested with many pathways. So thank you so much. My question is specifically on slide 18. You were talking about graduation rates and our first-time, full-time degree-seeking students, and how a lot of these students are first-generation students. And then on slide 27, you had how our rates in our teaching and nursing programs have just gone through the roof. And one of the things I know about these two programs is that we've opened up creative opportunities. No more traditional Monday through Friday. There's evening classes, online classes. And one of the things is we invested in summer school with these. When we think about students that are first gen that are working full time and they have to take a break during summer school, that slows them up. That can slow them up to a year to 2 years from entering the workforce. In addition, if they're taking student loans, they're accruing debt or interest during that time. And so what kind of work are you doing in forecasting the workforce that we need? So that we can start creating and replicating some of these models for the careers that we need 5-10 years from now.
Thank you so much. For the record, Patricia Charlton, Chancellor, through you, Senator Taylor, to okay. Thank you, Senator Cruz Crawford. It is like a reunion, just to just say. Thank you for that question. And I will say that one of the successes that we have, particularly in teachers and nurses, is exactly what you stated. We are able to move students through that pipeline faster because of the support in these areas in which we can do year-round programming, alternative different deliveries, because of the summer school in particular. What we are working on in our workforce development, we have a workforce committee of our board that is supported by an Assistant Vice Chancellor, Dr. Natalie Brown. So one of the things that we're working on with the chair of that committee, Regent Heather Brown, is to look at forecasting that data, and we're looking at partners such as Lightcast to be able to look at where the needs are for Nevada, not just today, but where they're going to be in the future, and what is the capacity of what we have within NCHE and all of our institutions combined to produce or to exceed those goals, because we know that we have attrition in fields, especially as you look at nurses and teachers. There's always attrition that's occurring. So we're looking at that from a forecast so that we can ensure that we've got the capacity in those specific fields to be able to deliver and meet the needs of Nevada, and in other fields as well.
I just want to say thank you. I have a bill for that coming up.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, shameless plug. Okay, we'll start down here. Dr. Titus. Senator Titus, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. I appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. And thank you, Chancellor, for being here. I appreciate your enthusiasm. You're an educator, and I like the fact that you still love what you do, as passionate as I am about my own career. Having said that, however, statistics are only, they can be used as you want them to be used. And if you sit with an 8-ounce glass of water and you say it's got 4 ounces in it, it could be 4 ounces, and you could say it's 4 ounces full or it's half empty. It doesn't really say what type of water's in there or liquid's in there. So back on your statistics on page 13. You point out that there is an impressive increase in Hispanic enrollment. This is page 13. But you don't really address that between 2014 and 2013. What percent of our overall population were Hispanics versus what they were in 2014, what they were in 2014 versus what they are now? Not the population that graduated or enrolled, but now do we have in Nevada 1 million Hispanic folks, and we would expect then that we have more people wanting to get an education. Did we really change that demographics percent enrollment in a college?
Certainly. So
And that figure doesn't show that.
No. So Patricia Charlton, for the record. Thank you, Senator Titus. So I have showed the 2023 demography of the state at the time. We'd be happy to see if we can get that information going back to that reference period so that we can show what that penetration rate is overall. And also to look, so this is population as a whole. We also want to look at those that are in that college attending age group as well.
Correct.
So we want to do that.
So I think it makes a difference. And also, so on that same line of questioning, you on page 24, you certainly had an increased percent of folks that graduated, no question about it, and good. But how many more slots did you have? How many kids attended? And that's the percent I'd like to see. Of the percent that are attending at that one time, you have X graduation rate. And now with the percent of kids attending, because there's a difference in your enrollment. And that number, that does not reflect that.
Certainly.
Have you really been successful? Or do you have 10 times more kids enrolled? You should have an improvement in your graduation rate.
Certainly. For the record, Patricia Charlton. So thank you, Senator Titus. We can certainly come back with additional information. So let me just say, I get the half full, half empty. There is significant work to be done. Any student that is lost along the pathway, that either drops out, doesn't complete, doesn't cross that finish line, is a problem. We also know that we have hundreds of thousands of individuals within the state of Nevada with some post-secondary education but haven't crossed the finish line. That is work that is to be done, and our institutions are very focused on that. And so we will definitely further slice and dice this information. Would be happy to provide additional follow-up.
Great, thank you for that, because I think it really makes a difference to see how successful you really have. Certainly you have expanded and you have more enrollees, but have you been truly successful?
Certainly, and I don't want this to come across as, again, Patricia Charlton for the record, as this is just all roses and birds chirping and all of that and positive. There is the challenge. I mean, obviously, we've also known that in the same time period, Nevada's population grew astronomically. So that's why that 100,000 enrollments, or the enrollment per 100,000, that's why that's so important. And that's our concern of why we haven't moved that needle. We actually hit the high mark in like 1980, 1990. So we need to do better in getting people into our pipeline. I think that has been achieved, and I think our institutions would also weigh in because of some of the opportunities that have been made available through the state. We have a Promise Scholarship. We have a Millennium Scholarship. We have our Silver State Opportunity Grant. All of those are opportunities for access for individuals that probably wouldn't have had the opportunity before. So we need to make it easier for them to get in. We don't want our students graduating with high levels of debt. That is a problem for everyone, and we need to ensure, and we have done that because it's been important for the legislature and has also been important for the system as well as our board to keep our education affordable.
Thank you. I want to see that the needle has moved, not just because you changed metrics, that you went from miles per hour to meters per hour, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Dr. Charlton. So I'll ask that additional information, if you'll get it to the committee secretary, and then she'll make sure and that it's distributed to the committee.
Certainly. And just for the record, I'm not Dr. Charlton yet.
Oh, almost.
Someday.
Dr. Charlton to be.
ABD doesn't count. But
Okay.
we do have representatives from the campuses if anyone has a question for them.
Okay,
And
well,
maybe
we
not
do have
today.
more questions, though,
Oh,
so.
okay.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought we
don't
were
be
done.
packing
Oh.
up. Open that back up. I got a list here, so we're continuing to do the work. Senator Donante has a question.
Thank you so much, Chair, and good afternoon, Chancellor. Thank you so much for coming. From the short time that we've known each other, you've always been gracious, and I just want to thank you for your service for this presentation. I want to talk about two different subjects, if I can, from the permission of the Chair. The first one, dealing with the student environment. So I have had a lot of conversations from students that are facing a sense of fear, right, given the national climate. But I've also heard from them about, what it means to be a student in our institutions, right? We, in my district, UNLV's in my district, we obviously have seen concerns of campus safety. We've talked about the rights of students. And so I know that there has been recent reports as to students wanting to collectively bargain, specifically graduate students. And I read your letter in terms of how the chancellor and the NC presidents don't have the power to make such decision. I want to, if you can guide us through your rationale for that, because I think I'm a little bit confused as to how Chapter 288 meets that, because from my understanding, the Board of Regents already have the authority to make such decision-making, and there isn't anything in NRS that prohibits it. So maybe if you can walk us through why that decision was made.
Certainly. So for the record, Patricia Charlton, and thank you, Senator Danyate. So first, I do want to let you know that we are working with our graduate students who have recently expressed their interest to collectively bargain. So there is legislation, and then there is also board policy. And so currently, our board policy does not permit the chancellor and the presidents to enter into collective bargaining at that level. We are, however, and we've had some conversation, we have a meeting, in fact, this week regarding work that's being done on a collective bargaining bill that is coming forward. And so we're at the table participating in that conversation with legislators that are crafting that. We know that the graduate assistants are in there. However, we don't want to wait to work on their challenges and the issues and concerns that they have noted. So both myself and representatives from UNLV, UNR, and Desert Research Institute are working to schedule that meeting to have that conversation with the students. Some of this came up at the very end of the fall semester. It is important. We know that there was also interest to potentially bargain similar to classified. And she does not bargain directly on the classified. There is the labor relations unit that is at the state that handles all of that. So again, we wanted to first address the concerns and make sure that we are aware of what those are. We are working with the legislature on the bill that is coming forward, and then we'll continue to pursue those challenges. But thank you for that question.
Thank you. And Chair, I do have a separate question, but I just want to finalize on this. I do think it's important to have this discussion, and perhaps you and I can have an offline discussion, or maybe if legal can follow up on this, because from my understanding in some of the governor's vetoes, and I'm not this is not a critique of his vetoes or anything, but in one of the ones that he vetoed last year, in his message was that the rationale for why it was vetoed was because the Board of Regents already has the authority to do so, and it was just duplicative. And so perhaps legal can follow up with us as to whether or not they do have the authority, but I wanted to make sure that was clear, because I'm missing something that I am not reading correctly on NRS.
Certainly. And just for the record, Patricia Charlton, I was not really an active participant in the 2023 legislation, but I do want to also add that our faculty senates are also working with the Nevada Faculty Alliance, which is our faculty bargaining group for those positions. And so we're hoping to bring some revisions to other policy, but we also know that the legislation is happening at the same time. And so we want to make sure that we get this right.
Thank you. Chair, can I ask my second question, please?
That wasn't your sec?
No.
No, go ahead.
It's a really quick one. There's been national conversations about online education and streamlining a centralized approach for centralized administration, centralized marketing of certain programs, and then also the centralization of or leveraging distributive academic expertise. Is this something that NC has debated or talked about, and what do you think needs to be done in order to get to that stage?
So thank you for the record, Patricia Charlton. So that's a good question. I know, having been in the system for about 3 decades, there have been certain times where there has been that conversation. I will say that because of the way in which we're structured and the way in which we're funded with our funding formula to the institutions, we haven't quite figured out the right nuance related to that. We have also, though, been looking at how we can, and we're going to be piloting this within the community colleges, just have an open access enrollment. So for instance, maybe I'm a Western Nevada college student and I can't get Math 180, which is calculus, but CSN happens to have an opening. So I might be able to partner and to be able to fill that gap. It's easier between our community colleges and our state university that all sit on the same student information system. However, that is something that is a work in progress. I would say that we also have fantastic expertise at each of our institutions in our faculty, and so also making sure that we've got those alignments appropriately. We have common course numbering. We also have groups where our different academic units come together to talk about their specific programs, and so I think the strength is there, and so we can definitely give you updates on that pilot that we're trying out with the community colleges and the state university on shared enrollment.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chancellor. We'll now go to the Vice Chair, Senator Dondero-Loop.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just have some clarifying questions, and not so much deep policy, but can you talk a little bit about the precision production? So I noticed on slide 29 where you listed the graduates working in Nevada, most of them had, higher numbers, but precision production only had 40. So can you tell us a little bit about what precision production is and how specific it is and why we would only have 40 graduates?
So thank you for the record, Patricia Charlton, and thank you, Senator Dondero-Loop, for that question. So precision production is actually a manufacturing related field. And when you look in 2020, 2021, the growth of manufacturing hadn't really taken off yet in Nevada. Many students would also be getting certificates in that area. And so I think if we were to update that data point today for a more recent, you would see astronomical levels of that, because there has been specific focus, I think, on the economic development and workforce, both north and south, as well as the funding through grant opportunities to increase manufacturing.
Thank you very much. I think this particular page is so important because I think that our students, in some ways, are starting to do what they're really interested in and what they really want to do, as opposed to, oh, you should go do this, or you should be a teacher, you should be a nurse, you should be an orthodontist. I don't care what it is, that somebody has put in their brain somewhere, and what they really want to do is they wanted to build a house or be in precision productions or be in business management, right? And I think it's so important for them to understand they're going to probably do this a long time, so they've got to love what they do.
Yes.
The other thing is, and we were just kind of chatting about this, is there a reason that we have never, I mean, I remember this conversation, I feel like back in the days of somebody that I loved near and dear to my heart was a regent. Is there a reason that we never made the course numbers consistent? So you take, I don't know, English 101 at UNR or NSU or CS, wherever it is, and it may be English 101 at UNLV, but it may not be, right? And the higher up you get, they may change. And so I was wondering if there was a reason we didn't do those course numbers consistently, since we have a system that covers the entire state.
Certainly. So for the record, Patricia Charlton. So we do have what's called common course numbering. So English 101 is English 101. We have implemented some what we call a co-rec model for expanding for developmental, but English or an English 101E is still an English 101. There are programs that may get into a more specific focus, more down at the detailed level. Perhaps it's in education or nursing, where the courses may be a little bit different based on the program development. But we do have common course numbering. We have good data around that. And I could also ask Associate Vice Chancellor Renee Davis to come to the table and give a little bit about that background of how we even develop our courses and how those numbers are developed.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's really important because we do have kids that transfer in between, institutions.
Thank you, Renee Davis, Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs. Thank you for that summary of common course numbering, Chancellor. I would say that the very beginning is the common course numbering. And so progressing from the common course numbering is kind of the next step, and that entails what counts towards the degree, the program of study that the student is interested in. And that's where we still have some work to do. The Board of Regents just approved a new strategic plan, and that's one of the areas that we'll be focusing on. Some of the things we are looking at exploring under the leadership of Vice Chancellor Daniel Archer are things like, can we have some two-year degrees that are common, for the first 2 years are common across the system? So right now we have a really good transfer system regionally. Our courses are aligned. Thank you for that shout out, Senator Cruz Crawford earlier. I think there's a really good alignment in terms of student wanting to transfer with an associate to a bachelor's program, north or south. Where sometimes it gets more complicated is when you kind of mix that up. And so those are the areas where we're looking at going beyond common course numbering, because actually that system has been around, I believe, at least since 2013, perhaps even before that. And so we need to build on that success.
Yes, and I think your dates are probably about right, because the near and dear to my heart, I remember when she worked on having the courses even from UNR be able to be transferred to UNLV and back and forth, right? We had teachers that would start there and then they would come here or vice versa, and then they'd find out a course didn't match and they had to take it all over again. So I think in this day of people trying to find the jobs and the right avenue for what they want to do, I just think and it makes sense because we have this overall arch, right, of the umbrella of our system. It's not separate systems like in other states. So thank you very much, and thank you for what you do. I actually think we have a great system, and we have great institutions that feed a lot of information, from I just want to take a class in photography to I need fire science to I want to be an orthodontist or a doctor or whatever, right? And so we really run the gamut, and I think that we do a great job here in the state of Nevada. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Senator. I'll close it out with just one question, and that is, will you update the committee on any of the efforts to for any of the institutions to become HSIs, Hispanic Serving Institutions?
Certainly, and so for the record, Patricia Charlton, so we have several of our institutions that have achieved that milestone. I think the emerging and almost crossed that finish line is the University of Nevada, Reno. I think that there's a representative here that can also address the progress that they are making and how close they are.
No, that's okay.
Okay, it's just them, all right.
It's,
Oh, okay,
it's,
you know.
it's almost 2 o'clock,
I
so.
totally get it. No, so we do have, they are right under the cusp of that. One or two others is maybe a little bit further down. We do have what's called an HSI task force where it brings together all of our institutions and they look at strategies to help to accomplish that goal, and because it really does serve the residents of the state of Nevada. And so they work together in camaraderie to help them. You're almost there. Here's another strategy that worked for us, and here's where we are.
Which are the institutions who've achieved that? Is that UNLV and?
For the record, Renee Davis. It is 5 institutions, so UNLV, CSN, TMCC, Nevada State, and Western Nevada. They're all, and then I think GBC is also getting close to emerging, although not quite as far along as UNR.
Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, then we're just going to say thank you for spending the time. Thank you for the presentation and certainly for the work that you do. Yeah, and go Pack. Someone else told me to say that, by the way. Okay, we're going to take, because we have more presentations, but I want to make sure that we cover the hearing of a bill. So we're going to reorder this a little bit and go to the hearing for Senate Bill 38. Those folks here? All right, absolutely. Come on up. Senate Bill 38 revises provisions related to school emergency operation plans. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and those who are with you and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Brett Compson. I am the administrator at the Nevada Division of Emergency Management. Today I have Ms. Sharon Luce with me, who's the deputy administrator, and Ms. Sherry Grennan, who is my chief of plans. I also have my chief financial officer, Mr. Jared Franco, in the back in case any of those things come up. So Chair Taylor, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present testimony in support of Senate Bill 38 and the proposed amendments to the Nevada revised statutes concerning the dissemination of school emergency operation plans to local public safety agencies. As the Nevada State Emergency Manager, I'm here to emphasize the critical need for these statutory changes to enhance emergency preparedness, coordination, and response efforts within our schools and our communities. Current Nevada law mandates that school districts, charter schools, and private schools develop and submit emergency operation plans to the Nevada Division of Emergency Management. However, existing statutes do not allow for the dissemination of these plans to local public safety agencies once submitted. This lack of access significantly hampers emergency preparedness and response efforts by first responders and emergency management personnel at the local level. The proposed amendments seek to align the language in NRS 388.259 and NRS 394.1698 to ensure cohesion between public and private school emergency planning statutes. Additionally, the amendments introduce changes to NRS 414.040, allowing the Division of Emergency Management to disseminate school emergency operation plans to local public safety agencies for emergency response, preparedness, and coordination efforts. Ensuring timely access to these plans improves situational awareness, expanding the knowledge of school-specific emergency procedures for first responders. Providing public safety agencies with these plans fosters better interagency coordination, reducing confusion and response times during actual emergencies. Law enforcement, fire departments, and emergency medical service personnel can conduct training and exercises based on actual school plans, enhancing readiness. This could be particularly critical during incidents such as active shooter events, fires, or natural disasters. Currently, NRS 388.259 and 394.1698 emphasize confidentiality but do not adequately account for the necessity of information sharing with emergency responders. The proposed language allows dissemination while maintaining confidentiality safeguards, ensuring plans are only shared with appropriate agencies for emergency preparedness, training, and response efforts. In the Nevada Commission on Homeland Security meeting on September 7th, 2023, Sheriff McMahill of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and previous Chief of the Division, Chief Dave Fogerson, discussed the importance of providing access to final drafts of plans for responding agencies. In the same meeting, Governor Lombardo directed that this topic be addressed in the 2025 legislative session. Failure to enact these statutory changes could result in increased risk to students, faculty, and first responders during crisis situations. Additionally, missed opportunities for interagency collaboration and training could hinder efforts to enhance emergency preparedness. The proposed amendments to NRS 388.259, 394.1698, and 414.040 are necessary to ensure that Nevada's public safety agencies have the tools and information needed to protect our schools effectively. This is a common sense, no-cost solution that strengthens our state's resilience and safeguards our children and our educators. I urge this committee to support the passage of Senate Bill 38 with the proposed amendments, ensuring that emergency operations plans can be effectively shared with those responsible for responding to crisis. Thank you for your time and consideration. We are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Compton. Any questions for the committee? Senator Titus?
Thank you, sir. Good to have you here, and I appreciate what you are bringing forward, but I do indeed have some questions. So at the current time, the schools, casinos, agencies are already mandated to have an emergency plan within those facilities there's throughout our state, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they're currently mandated that they share that with your office?
They are mandated to share those with our office.
Right.
Individual schools, Brett Thompson for the record, are mandated to share it with their district. We receive the district plan. We do not receive the individual public school plans.
So the way I'm looking at, so at this point in time, every school district, so we have 17 different districts, they have their plan up here that then they share with you and you have it on record. In the case of an identified emergency, you then can share it with local enforcement. These plans are not now allowed to be shared with local EMS?
Correct. So as written, Brett Thompson for the record, as written in NRS currently, we can share a plan at the time of an emergency.
Okay.
If you imagine that you are a first responder responding to a school in which an active shooter event is occurring, and you need to get access to a school, either their plan, their collection points, the blueprints for the school, that is an onerous process to call back to dispatch, to reach back to my duty officer, to have my duty officer load up their computer if it's a weekend, to get the plan, to get it to the responder that's responding. If those plans are already in place with local law enforcement who are responding to a crisis, the time of response is going to be simply quicker. It's going to allow them to provide a quicker, more efficient, and safer response.
So what I see so I think the big change here would be that the local law enforcement, the local EMS services would have somewhere they already have these plans per their local school areas, each individual school. You know our area as well as I do, so say Smith Valley EMS would have a copy of the schools for just Smith Valley. Is that what you're telling me?
Brett Thompson for the record. So as NRS is written, individual schools are supposed to provide those to their local law enforcement. I have no enforcement mechanism that. This would provide another mechanism for us to provide that really before an incident occurs. So right now, it's really about coordination and preparedness. So if you're a law enforcement agency, a fire agency, emergency or medical services agency, what this will allow us to do is share the plans before we are in the heat of the moment so that they can conduct training, they can conduct preparedness, they can conduct rehearsals, and have these plans available to them before an incident occurs. At the moment of the incident is not the time to be figuring out where the plan is.
And again, thanks. And I guess I need clarity. They don't already have the plans. Our local EMS doesn't already have the plans. It would only they would share them at the time of an emergency, or you're looking at doing this so you can. It's not just a time of emergency. They're going to have them all the time. And again, I just worry. I think about the confidentiality of all that and where they're going to sit. What's the computer systems they're going to use at? How many eyes will be seeing this as opposed to one database that you would have that then, okay, 911 call goes out. You can identify where that is. You send them that plan.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's some confidentiality, some management, cybersecurity, all of those issues, and I just need some clarity.
Yes, ma'am. Brett Thompson for the record. If I'm in your seat, I would look at it this way. It's a risk balancing option, right? So if you look at what is the probability that somebody is going to break into a law enforcement database that Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, for example, has, and acquire the emergency response plans, use that plan to develop an active shooter scenario, I think that the probability of that is extremely low. I think the probability that we will see an active shooter event in a school in which those plans will need to be used and those responding officers or firefighters may have to use those plans and they've trained on those plans beforehand, I think that that's a high probability that will occur. And so really what the committee has to balance is the risk of somebody breaking in and using those plans to develop an attack versus the probability that we will have an attack, and we want to be best prepared to respond to that attack.
Thank you, Senator. I'll go to Senator Loop, and then we'll go down to Senator Rogich.
Thank you very much, and I'll just respond. I guess I really don't have a question, just a response to my colleague and her concerns. I sort of feel like as a teacher, the bad guy already has the plan. I mean, he's got it, and that's why he's there. He's been in the school, or she's been in the school. But I can tell you, as a person who's been through some of those drills, and my guess is the person to my right has too, I want someone to know where those kids are or where those people are. And I think it's better to err on the side of caution in these positions. So I guess I do have one clarifying question, and that is the simple cliff note to this bill that now you can't do it, and if we pass this bill, you can share those plans?
Rick Thompson for the record, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Loop. Senator Rogich.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, and thank you for your presentation. I just want to confirm that these plans will be based on floor plans and not anything relating to a student's confidential personal information.
Rick Thompson for the record, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rogich. Senator Cruz Crawford.
Hello, Colonel Compton, fellow Guard member. I'm Air. So I'm a school principal, and every year in the 5th largest school district, CCSD, we are required to do an emergency plan that's pretty extensive. It has floor plans. It does have, to speak to Senator Rogich, people on staff or students that will need an additional plan on how to get out. Like, let's say if a student's in a wheelchair, that information is on there. And I have had several times police, fire, and medic at school. Unfortunately, we are in an area that goes on lockdown frequently, or we do have students that elope. And so I partner with CCSD police. I partner with fire. Even one time I had CCSD police, the City of Las Vegas Marshal, and Metro on campus all at once. And I think it's incredibly important to be able to share this information. Obviously, there's a risk, right? But we got to balance that risk and reward. And it's been so much more beneficial to support with our local emergency management, especially in crisis when things are happening and they need to know where they're getting in the building the fastest. So I don't see any problem with this. I think it's very much common sense. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Seeing no further questions, my only comment is it sounds to me like it's about readiness. And I think that's really important when it comes down to safety. So thank you very much for your presentation. There are no other questions, so we will now, the hearing for this was opened, and so now we'll take any comments for anyone who would like to comment. You please go to your seats. Thank you so much.
Chair.
You're dismissed, at least from the table. We will take now, during this hearing, we'll take anyone who would like to testify in support of Senate Bill 8. Please come to the table. Anyone who would like to testify in support, please come to the table at this time and have a seat, and then we'll go to Las Vegas. Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Susan Kema. I am the executive, for the record, you spell it K-E-E-M-A. I am the executive director for the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, and we support SB 38.
Chair, Committee. My name is Adrian Hunt, ADRIANHUNT. I represent Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. We support this measure, Senate Bill 38. This bill will be positively impactful based on the ability for school plans to be shared by the state to law enforcement agencies for preparedness efforts. This will eliminate the duplication between local and state agencies required to receive the plans. Thank you. We support.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Seeing no one else to testify in support here in Carson City, we're going to go to Las Vegas. I see someone there, but he's not making his way to the table, so we'll go to the phone lines. BPS, do we have anyone who'd like to testify? In fact, let me give the number. In case you're online and would like to testify, you can dial 888-475-4499. And then when prompted, the meeting ID number is 827-8338-7196. BPS, do we have anyone wishing to testify?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Now we'll come back here to Carson City for anyone to testify in opposition. Anyone in opposition to Senate Bill 38? Okay, seeing none. Las Vegas? Oh, he left, so there's he really doesn't want to go on record. Okay. No one in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the phone line? Has anyone picked up since that last time?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. And then finally, anyone who would like to testify neutral in Carson City? Seeing none. Las Vegas? Seeing none, and then we'll go one more time to the phone lines.
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again for your presentation. We'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 38. We appreciate your coming. All right, we'll return now to our agenda. We're hoping to get through 3 presentations. We'll see how we roll. We're going to start with the Executive Director of Nevada's Department of Native American Affairs, Ms. Stacy Montooth. Welcome. You know the routine. Please go ahead and state your name for the record.
That look? Fantastic. Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Stacy Montooth. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Indian Commission. For the record, I'm here with 12 slides, and I will be as succinct as possible. The name of my presentation is Meeting Our Mission Through the Native American Fee Waiver. I want to thank you all for carving out time to hear from me today. I also want to follow up on the chair's comments. I too will make limited eye contact with you all. My notes are very succinct. I have such important information. I want to make sure that I share everything with you, so I apologize if it doesn't look like I am looking directly at you. So today, oh gosh, user error. How do I advance here? There we go. Sharing a little bit of our operations in Indian country. We begin all formal meetings with an acknowledgement of the lands that we gather on, the Numa, the Nui, the Nuwu, the Washishi, and the Pipa-a-Makav have lived in the Great Basin since time began. Please join me in offering our deepest respect and gratitude to our 5 major indigenous groups, the Northern Paiute, the Shoshone, the Southern Paiute, the Washoe, and the Mojave, not just the original caretakers of this land we now call Nevada, but for their enduring stewardship and protection of our shared land and waterways. Today, the Nevada Department of Native American Affairs reaffirms its commitment to improve the quality of life for our 28 tribal nations, bands, colonies, and our 62,000 plus urban Indians who choose to make Nevada their current home. Again, going back to our traditional ways, I want to underscore, you see my face. There's a slide with me featured prominently, but I want to make sure that you understand I am not here speaking for our tribal nations. I'm not here speaking for our community members. I speak with them. So this slide is to illustrate the great community that's I'm actually supporting. You mentioned, Chair, you do have some new committee members. So just quickly, I want to share or remind some of you that the Department of Native American Affairs, our mission is to improve the quality of life. Again, 28 tribal nations, 62,000 urban Indians. Our purpose, specifically codified in NRS, we study matters affecting the social and economic welfare of all American Indians in Nevada. This is having to do with any issues relating to Indian country, whether it's federal or state. So finally, our topic today, higher education. I start with the question, why higher education? That seems like a very straightforward question. It probably seems like it should have a very succinct answer. I want you to know before I go through this list that this information that I'm sharing with you today, like all the information that my office gathers, is specifically from the perspective of our tribal leaders. It is from our Indian Education Advisory Committee, which the NRS gives my agency the authority to create. It includes information from our tribal elders. So again, straightforward questions, but these answers are from a Native perspective. So why do we want our Native learners to go and graduate from higher education? First one, straightforward socioeconomic status. There's a clear-cut association with your higher attainment in education to your standard of living, and that's specifically economic-driven. That needs to be underscored. Civic engagement. Our leadership at the National Indian Education Association tells us that our students who are not only culturally grounded, they become more engaged in all of the civic education opportunities, and not just within their tribal government, but with mainstream society. Cultural representation is extremely important to our elders, to our leaders. What we know, again, from the National Indian Education Association, our students learn better when they're taught by people that look like them. They learn better when they are coached by volunteers or school coaches that look like them. And so we want our people to get those higher education degrees so they can serve in those capacities. Our tribal leaders want our Native learners to attain degrees in higher education to address historic marginalization. They also underscore better health care. Indian Health Service has hard research, and I think this goes for all of society. The more formal education credentials you have, the better your health outcomes are. And then finally, our elders are really looking towards our Native learners to be able to navigate mainstream society. And that often happens, that transpires mostly when they have, again, an experience in higher education. So, by the numbers, and I want to underscore, this is for high school. My focus is on higher education, but I think that this will just help give you a better glimpse of what we're looking at, big picture. So in the United States, in our country, we know that 449,400 Native learners are in public high schools in this country. Ballpark 1% of our country. Specific to, and that comes from the National Indian Education Association. In our state, through the Nevada Department of Education, we know that 1% of all public school learners, 3,778, identify as Native learners. I want to make sure and underscore that this is folks who are self-identified. They're the boss of them, their parents, their grandparents. When they enroll in public schools in our state, they check the box. They provide additional documentation that says, yep, our student is tribally enrolled, they're connected, they're a direct descendant of a federally recognized tribe. I also think that it's very critical for this group to know 27% of all of our self-identified Native American learners are studying in Clark County. We have 4 schools. These are public schools that are on tribal land. You're going to hear from our friends at Duck Valley soon. They fall into this category. Also know that there is one Bureau of Indian Education school in Nevada, and that is out 60 miles from here at Pyramid Lake. So, getting back to higher education, more data. Our friends at the National Indian Education Association tell us that 22% of all American Indian Alaska Native learners graduate from college. This is specific to a 4-year degree, 22%. The Nevada Department of Native American Affairs, our research, and we've looked for all kinds of data, we can only absolutely state that in Nevada, we have 486 Native learners. That's a pretty ugly number. That's 0.04% of the population. I will continue to find good numbers, but I want to underscore, this is not specific to education. The census, income, it's so hard to collect good data in Indian country, and if you'll invite me back, we can talk about that some other day. But keep in mind, the numbers that I am sharing with you today only include folks that are self-identified, and not only self-identified, but they only identify as Native American. So, I don't know if they're still in the room. You were right earlier, this was the place to be, but this information that I'm sharing comes straight from Chancellor Charlton and NSHE. Renee Davis put this together, and this is a graph based on your request. So in July every year, NSHE releases the numbers of Native Americans who are taking advantage of the Native American fee waiver. You can see that in the academic year 2021, through all of the respective NSHE institutions, we had 140 Native learners use that waiver to at least take one class. That number, 140, includes degree-seeking students. That number also includes those looking for certificates, those in graduate school, those in law school. So I would just ask you to scroll right across and know that in the last academic year that we have information on, 2023, 2024, that number has jumped from 140 learners to 486. And I promise you that number is going to be quite a bit higher this next academic year as well. And having heard your questions earlier, Dr. Titus, I hope that this clarification on the percentage of Native Americans in our country adequately addresses the issues that, the questions that you asked earlier. I'm happy to answer any questions you all have. I also want to take time, because you all do such a great job of archiving all the presentations. Know that the list of organizations and people on this slide have not just contributed to my remarks today, but they are doing the heavy lifting to ensure that our Native learners have equal access to higher learning in the state of Nevada. And here's my contact information for future questions. And again, I am prepared to answer anything that you'd like currently.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Montooth. Very concise, but very informative, very informative. Senator Titus?
Thank you. I love it when people are prepared, that they know what I'm going to ask. So I'm not even going to ask it because you showed it. But my question actually is, how many, your native language, how many of the schools in our NSHE programs offer your native language classes? And are there any on at the high school level? And how are we doing better at that? I love Nevada history. I love history in general, especially your native history. And preserving that is just instrumental, and part of that is preserving your language.
Stacy Montooth, the Nevada Department of Native American Affairs, for the record. A little side note, I appreciate those comments, Dr. Titus. I've been told that I need to have somehow manage an invitation to your home because you have better archives on Native American history than the Smithsonian. So I apologize. I digress.
I live in a museum, I will tell you.
So I will answer your question about Native language offerings in colleges through NCHI and also Native language in high school to the best of my ability, but know that there are probably better experts in this room to answer that. But I can tell you without a doubt that the University of Nevada currently offers Paiute language, specifically Northern Paiute language, at 2 different levels. It continues to grow. Anecdotally, I want you to know, I specifically mentioned regarding the fee waiver, the legislation that you all passed and supports really focuses on an area that the chancellor addressed as well. The native language isn't just for degree-seeking students. It's not just for 18 to 22-year-olds. I have an auntie who, you know, our grandmother went to boarding schools and Paiute was beaten out of her. I have an auntie who has a little bit of recollections about Paiute as a young girl. She's now relearning that language at the University of Nevada. So, again, I know that UNR offers that, and it now is at 2 levels. Regarding high school, I know that we have 2 public schools. Again, our friends from Shopai Nation are in the room. At the Owyhee Combined School, I believe for decades, they've been offering Shoshone, perhaps Paiute language classes to their students. I am certain that in Humboldt County through McDermott High School, there are language classes offered as well. Probably the most, I will say the most talked about program regarding Native language in our high schools comes out of Washoe County, just right down the road. So again, I'm not the expert, but I know there's one in the room. The State Department of Education created a program some time ago which pairs a licensed classroom teacher with a fluent native language speaker. And not only is that a native language speaker, but the NDA and the respective Washoe County School District work with the tribal government to identify who the tribal government feels is the appropriate person to partner with that classroom educator. And they offer what we call Great Basin language in 4 different high schools in the Washoe County School District. And I believe we are talking about Worcester High School, Reed High School, North Valleys High School, and Spanish Springs High School. Those 4 schools have probably the highest overall percentage of Native learners in those respective districts, with the exception of Pyramid Lake, which again is a BIE, Bureau of Indian Education school, and they already have great language programs in place. I will also share with you, in the last few semesters, the Great Basin languages as an elective are some of the elective classes that fill up the fastest. And last I knew, we had just as many non-natives wanting to get into those classes as we do native learners.
Thank you for that. It's good to hear, know that it's climbing. And just a little side note on myself, my grandmother actually worked on the same ranch in Mason Valley that Wovoka did. And so Native history is pretty impressive to our family. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your kind words. Any other questions?
I think Senator Cruz Crawford just want a quick statement.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Titus, if you like bilingual ed, you're going to love my bill coming up. I just wanted to share one thing for us. I saw the fee waivers jumped from 2022 to the 23-24. Last session, it was approved that there was tuition waivers for surrounding tribes surrounding Nevada. So that created a huge jump in those tuition waivers. We're tracking about $3 million at NG Plus this year so far for tuition waivers, and that's costs that the universities have to absorb. I know this is a policy and not a financial, but I do want to let you know that is something that is going to be coming up. So I appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And again, thank you for the work. Thank you for the passion behind this. Is very, very important. And it's so great to see it becoming alive again, right, in our state. So thank you, Ms. Montooth. Okay, we will continue with our education programs. With this, we'll go to the Nevada Department of Education, Superintendent Joan Ebert and team. Please, you know the routine. State your name for the record. And ladies, you have 15 minutes.
Superintendent Joan Ebert, for the record, one of the best things that I have the honor to do in my job is to work with students. And I also have the honor of working with amazing staff. So with that, we this afternoon are going to share with you the wonderful work that we're doing in regard to our American Indian students, the curriculum. You heard from Director Montooth about our partnership. And with that, I am going to introduce the most important person in our room today, and that is Riata Palmer. She is a senior at McDermott High School, and she will be part of our presentation as well. So with that, team, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I am Julie Bowers, and I am the Director of the Office of Inclusive Education at the Nevada Department of Education. I am honored to present the work that our Indian education team, in partnership with WestEd's Western Educational Equity Assistance Center, has done to develop a 5-year plan aimed at improving outcomes for American Indian and Alaska Native students. For the rest of the presentation, I will refer to the student population as our Native students. With me today is Ferdinand Dry Romero, Education Programs Professional, and we are also pleased, as our superintendent spoke, to have Riata, a senior at McDermott Combined School, with us today. Not working. All right. To understand the full picture of our work, NDE's partnership with WestEd began with a comprehensive review of existing data. This included national, state, and district data sources. We also incorporated valuable insights from the Nevada Indian Education Summit in March of 2024, as well as interviews conducted with our district leaders in the fall of 2024. The analysis of the collected data led to the establishment of the following key priorities. 1, measurably increasing student attendance and engagement. 2, measurably increasing high school graduation rates. And 3, ensuring the accurate identification of Native students. For priority 1, NDE is committed to significantly reducing chronic absenteeism among Native students, lowering the current rate of 49.4% to 23% by 2030. This ambitious goal aims to bring the rate for Native students in line with or potentially lower than the current national average. For priority 2, graduation rates, the current 4-year graduation rate for our Native students is currently 65%. Our goal is to increase this to 80% by 2030. NDE celebrates students graduating in 4 years and is committed to increasing the number of our 4-year graduates However, we recognize the importance of supporting students who require additional time to complete their studies. Therefore, we plan to raise the 5-year graduation rate for Native students from 70% to 82% by 2030. Our third priority focuses on the accurate identification of Native students. To achieve this, the Department of Education will continue to consult with tribal leaders to determine their data needs and priorities regarding student identification, with the goal of developing a clear policy for tribes and districts, as well as the development of tools, templates, and resources to assist in this data collection. This 5-year plan is currently in its final review phase and will be implemented in the fall of 2025. In addition to the development of this plan, NDE has also been actively engaged in other Indian education initiatives. I will turn it over to Ferdinand Dry Romero to tell us more about this important work.
Ferdinand Dry Romero for the record. Can you turn the slides? And again. From an idea presented at the Indian Education Summit in 2024, the Nevada Department of Education's Indian Education Program and the Office of Teaching and Learning, we are collaborating with the Great Basin tribes to create a pathway for students' proficiency in native language to earn the Nevada State Seal of Biliteracy. To kickstart this process, in Nevada, we met with our tribes and held a workshop in July at the Nevada Museum of Arts, and focusing on the development of student assessment to accurately gauge language proficiency. The goal is to provide students with the opportunity to learn the Seal of Biliteracy in Paiute, Western Shoshone, and the Washoe tribes. And as you can see from this slide, the project has full support from our Department of Education Superintendent of Public Instruction, Joan Ebert, who has emphasized the profound importance of this expansion. Another project that I want to talk about today that the department has been actively engaged in is the Native American Curriculum Enhancement Project, representing our indigenous tribes in Nevada. So working along collaboratively with the Department of Native American Affairs, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and the NDE, we will integrate indigenous perspectives into the newly developed lesson plans by working directly with tribal leaders and elders. They will also assist in creating professional learning opportunities for educators and work with both pre-service and in-service teachers to ensure accurate classroom representation of these perspectives.
Julie Bowers for the record. The Indian Education Program is proud of its accomplishments since the last legislative session, including the projects we have already talked about today, but there's a few others. We have also increased our collaboration with districts and tribal leaders through the tribal consultation process. We have secured the Native Youth Community Project grant from the U.S. Department of Education. And lastly, we are especially grateful to the 2023 legislators for their support in funding to expand our Indian education program staff, adding crucial members to our team. Thank you for the opportunity to share these accomplishments. The Indian Education Program is excited to continue this vital work, including implementing this 5-year plan, pursuing new initiatives, and hosting, of course, our annual Education Summit in March of 2025. I will now turn it over to our special guest, Riada, to talk about her personal journey of education and her future aspirations.
Riada Palmer for the record. Hauma na Riada Palmer minanea nitimida weta kimara ipia Marcy Northrop inada si Palmer. Hello everybody, my name is Riada Palmer. I come from the Fort McDermott Indian Reservation. I am 17 years old and a senior at McDermott High School. As I mentioned before, I'm a senior at McDermott High School, and I have committed to the University of Nevada, Reno. And I am going into social work, and I'm trying to focus on human and family development. Before I had made this commitment, I had a big dream of going to UNLV for hospitality. The NYCP had granted a lot of our kids in McDermott the opportunity to tour and experience college life. We were able to stay in the dorms and meet with different people from different departments. My biggest takeaway from this was the hospitality piece. In my mind, I fell in love with the idea of coming home and owning a casino that would profit my community. I was dead set on this, and that is what my mind was set on. But of course, when new opportunities come up, I took the chance of further exploring my options. I listened to people talk about generational trauma. I had never quite understood what people meant when they discussed this topic. But the more I listened and understood, something in my heart had changed. In my heart, I knew this touched a soft spot for me. I see children in my own community suffering and struggling in school. They're often acting out and troubled. We only see what's on the surface. We don't know what's happening in that child's life. I don't want to only work with these children, but the parents and guardians as well, because these things start in the home. I had been exposed to multiple universities that had offered amazing programs. Thanks to NYCP, I was able to go to these campuses to explore and network with different people. I had applied to KU, Haskell, Portland University, and UNR. I had been accepted into all of them. So I heavily thank NYCP. I would have never been exposed to all of these amazing opportunities and never would have found what I have a strong passion for. I made the decision to stay in Nevada because of NSHE and the Native American fee waiver. It is helping me out greatly because I am being raised by a single mother growing up on a reservation, and times are tough nowadays. I am taking any bit of financial help I can get. I have applied to multiple scholarships and have worked to find as many grants to help in any way possible. So this fee waiver has definitely had a big influence on my choice. So I am very excited to even have the opportunity to have a college education as an Indigenous student.
You did an awesome job. Thank you so much. Okay, and that concludes the presentation. That's the way to end right there. That's certainly the way to end.
It
Thank
was
you
definitely
so much.
the way to end.
Yes, definitely.
We do open the floor up for any questions that you may have.
Any questions from any of the committee members? Senator Titus?
Not a question, but just a really big thank you for being here today. You heard my question earlier, so you addressed it. And I also want you to know, thank you very much, quite impressed. And we are working hard to support the social work programs in our schools to be continued, even perhaps some reimbursement for doing that. So thank you. And again, thank you for staying in Nevada. We need you.
Thank you, Senator. And this isn't really a question. I just want to point out, she's also has been on the girls basketball team for 4 years. So she's talented in so many ways. So we're certainly glad to have you in our state and glad you're going to stay here at home. Senator Dondero-Loop?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I do want to thank you as well and tell you that we would be happy if you would like to transfer to UNLV at any point.
I turned her mic off. There's a technical problem. I don't know what happened, BPS. I don't know what happened. It's amazing. Go Pack.
I'm telling you, things get rough around here sometimes.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate all of you too, but thank you very much for being here, and you did such a great job. Such a great job. Thank you. We're honored to have you.
This is Ferdina for the record. This is why we do the work.
Absolutely.
Is for the student. The Department of Education, we've been so fortunate to have this Native Youth Committee project to be able to be in the McDermott Combined School in Humboldt County School District, as well as in the Walker River Paiute tribe that is in Lyon County and Mineral County, touching those students there. And it's just amazing that it's able to touch all students in our state. If there were more funding, we could do more things with these wonderful students that we get to know every summer during our summer camps with UNLV and UNR.
Julie Bowers, for the record, if I could just add one more thing.
Then we have a question, yes.
She is also the UNR powwow princess, and she did bring her crown today, and since we asked her to bring it, I think she should show it.
I think so too. Please do. And while you do that, Ms. Rihanna, we're going to have a question from Senator Dondero-Loop.
While she is doing that, I have a question of explanation. I think I know this, but I don't know. Would you explain your necklace that you're wearing and what the significance of what you have on? Because I have seen others around the building, and I would like some explanation.
Ferdina Dry Romero for the record. Rietta's great-great-grandmother actually beaded this, my stepmother's mother, the late Berdina Bacon. And when I was her age,
and I was a dancer, and so my grandmothers all beaded the rose medallion for me.
What a gift. Thank you very much. And I try to rival Senator Titus at my home in Las Vegas with many Nevada pieces that I have shared with Ms. Montooth as well. So go ahead, please, Riata. We would love to hear from you.
We please go ahead. We love to put on your crown and then tell us what it's about.
All right, Rieta Palmer for the record. Yeah, recently I took a very spontaneous choice to run for this title because a lot of people told me that my speaking would get me a long ways, and I did not believe them. I didn't think that was considered a talent, but apparently it is. So I was lucky enough to win because I did run against another smart young girl. And a lot of their talents was everybody else sang. Unfortunately, I am not gifted like that. But I did write a short story on what it's like to be Indigenous, from my perspective, being like so pale, unfortunately. And there, I did not realize it, but there is a lot of other Indigenous people that do have that issue with their skin color being too light, too dark, or my hair being too light. It's been an issue, but whenever I spoke on it, I realized that I touched on so many people. So it makes me even more proud and happy to represent such a big title.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that, Senator Titus.
And thank you, and that brings us, and thank you for bringing that, and I hope that you will consider wearing that when you graduate. We had to actually pass a law here. Assemblyman, wasn't it?
It was last session.
Yeah, last session,
Last
De Silva,
session.
so that folks, students could actually wear artifacts of their communities or their identities or whoever they felt they needed to represent at that moment. And so hopefully you'll consider doing that when you graduate. So thank you for that. And I have grandchildren that have the same issues as you, that are too light. Their father's black, their mom's my stepdaughter, and very pale. And there's issues there that I didn't realize until my own grandchildren expressed that to me. And thank you for sharing that insight also.
I'll say just a couple of things. One, in the black community, we have those same issues, right? Unfortunately, and I'm sure you're aware of that. But I will say that law, part of what prompted that law that we passed last session was people wanted to wear their eagle feathers, which we know is really, really important in your community and in your culture. And so they were getting some pushback and some resistance. So we had to make sure that was a big driver for why that law was passed. So thank you for sharing that part of your culture with us, because all the students across the state now will benefit from that. Yeah, thank you so much. That was a good sidetrack. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your being here. And good luck on campus. Yes, please don't leave. We want to get some pictures after, okay? Yeah. All right, last but certainly not least, we have a presentation from the Shoshone-Paiute Tribal Business Council, and joining us is Brian Mason. Please, sir, go right ahead.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Brian Mason. That's BRIAN-MASON. And I'm the current chairman for the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes. I actually have the honor of being the chairman of the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes. So I was asked to come and speak just shortly on the bill that was passed in the 82nd legislative session, AB 519. And I recognize a lot of faces that participated in that bill and that effort, and it was a monumental lift, and it is certainly appreciated. I'm going to go through some things that we discovered, and we found that it's not just an issue that's on Indian reservations, but it's actually rural Nevada. And I think one of the hardships was during that session, I remember testifying for, Senator Pete Kokochia's effort to get a school for Ely, and it was unsuccessful, and it made me that much more grateful that we were. So on June 13th of 2023, Governor Lombardo signed AB 519 into law. And that journey took our business council to New York and to the halls of the United Nations. It took us to Washington, D.C., to the halls of the state capitol. And it took us here to the Nevada Legislative session of the 82nd session. It also took us and put us in front of Elko County School District and the Elko County itself on trying to procure the one-time spending bill to allocate funds for a new school. And it was a school that was desperately needed. I mean, we came here in force last time, so I don't want to go through that again because we are limited on time. But it was not, and I've said it before, we actually did a short documentary film on it, and it was not just the effort of the Business Council, it was the effort of the community. And it was a participation at all levels, from Head Start students to grade schoolers to seniors in high school to the educators and to the parents. And they all came, and they all met with lots of you, and they sat in your offices and testified. 519's taken many twists and turns, many disappointments, letdowns, and highs, and joys, and obviously some lows as there were some setbacks. You know, there's so many people that you want to acknowledge and thank that assisted on this, but it reminds me of a term, you know, that we used in the Marine Corps. I spent many years in the Marine Corps, and it was gung-ho, and that just means working together, because it wasn't a few people, it was a state effort, you know. And so, you know, I could go on and I could thank, you know, Ways and Means Chairwoman Monroe. I could thank the Senator Hansen that first brought the subject up, Alexis Hansen, Assemblywoman. There's many people down that chain. You know, Dr. Ken Higbee from the school district that meant to do it, and then of course, you know, our lobbyist from Silver State, Will Adler, that has been there the whole way. But mainly the kids. And I think that's what it was about. And, you know, these last 2 years have been some of the most rewarding and some of the, you know, most disappointing. And, you know, I made 7 deployments while in the Marine Corps, some combat, some humanitarian, some peacekeeping, some operational. And this was definitely the most challenging. Even today, or yesterday, you know, there was a lawsuit against the bill to remove specifically, you know, a county out of the bill, you know, and the tax that's related to it. It had nothing to do with the one-time dollar amount that was awarded to build Oahe High School, but it's just another stumbling step that, you know, kind of like adds to that difficulty layer. You know, after all that time that I spent overseas and the amount of things and the people of the world, not of the states, but of the world that I met, you know, I never met any more resilient people in this world than the ones that reside on the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. There's nothing like it. And part of the difficulty getting a contractor to come build is we're so remote. I mean, we're 2 hours from anywhere. 2 hours to get a McDonald's hamburger. Now, there's something got to be illegal with that. And on, you know, resiliency, you know, the kids struggled, just to attend school. I saw an attendance comment or stats on that from, other high schools, and we suffer from that too. Because it's not the best place to go to learn. I mean, it's just not. He was even declared a building that is unsafe. And it's been intergenerational like that. And on the resilience of the people, I have the fortunate of having my communications director here, who graduated from that school, and then proceeded on to Boise State and graduated from Boise College. And then after that was selected as a UDOL intern, one of 12 in the United States. One of 12 in the United States. And he's sitting here right now. Orlando, would you stand up? And he interned at Senator Cortez Masto's office this summer. And he came home, and we gave him a job, and he's our communications director right now. Kind of assists the business council on navigating some of these issues that we go through on a daily basis. But that's the resiliency of the people that have dealt with this school issue. And, I hope it gives you solace in the fact that when you voted this law, this bill into law, that you did it for the right reasons and the right folks. Because there's no better folks than the ones that are out there on that reservation. I mean, it's tough. I mean, people just don't realize that if you get hurt, you just bought a chopper ride to Boise. If you get hurt, if you break a leg, if you break a bone, ranching accident, vehicle, anything, you're on a chopper. I mean, that's just the way it is. If you go to the store to buy groceries, you better have gas, because there is no gas for 2 hours. So, I mean, that's the kind of the life we deal with on a pretty daily basis. So this bill was a gift. And I'm sure it's going to improve lives, and at the end of the day, save lives. So, I mean, like I said, there's been many ups and turns. Our lobbyist, Will Adler, Silver State Government Relations, has helped us navigate the whole thing. There's, many folks that have assisted. And there's, unfortunately, many folks that have tried to block it, but, it's unfortunate. But I just wanted to give you some update. We did get a contractor last week at Paseo County School District, and we got a build, so we're building. We've already done lots of stuff. The tribe, we actually partnered with the National Guard from Idaho. They came in, they did the dirt work for us in preparation. We had a groundbreaking ceremony where Governor Lombardo came out. Some senators, Nevada senators, and Assembly school district folks did the ground opening, did all the baseline studies, and this was on the tribe's dime. I know that the governor had some ARPA dollars that he pushed out to the tribes, $740,000. We put that all into the studies, all the baseline studies paid for by the tribes. We went out because we know this is a remote build. The tribes, on tribes funds, purchased 10 tiny homes to establish a man camp. It's $1 million. We're a non-revenue tribe. In other words, we don't make any money from anywhere. We're off of grants and BIA funds. So the amount of stuff that we've done is resilient, like I've mentioned. I've got a project team that has been working on this. We got U.S. Highway federal dollars to get the road in and road out already done. Well, it hasn't been done, but we've got the funds allocated it. We've got fiber optics to the front door, partnering with the state of Nevada on Wire Rural Nevada. It went a different route. For years, we've been trying to get it done, and it was gonna be $20 million to go through the canyon. They had a great idea. They said, let's go around the mountain. Well, it works. It was like 7 million, so. But anyway, on and on and on. Our people have been working on it since that bill passed. And, you know, we're striving every day to do it. And if you have any questions, I'd like Will Adler to come up, and my communications director, because they can speak to stuff more specifically. You know, I'm the leader, right? I mean, these guys, you know, assist in all the everyday stuff. But yeah, so any questions that you have, and it's your school. I mean, you guys passed the law, so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We're honored to have you here and so proud of you, and we won't hold Will against you. But I would like to ask my colleague to the right. She chairs Senate Finance and was a part of the passage of this bill. So please, Senator Dondero Loop.
I just want to thank you for being here, because I share, as an educator for 30 years in a classroom, I share my full support and heart with you.
Yep.
I've been there. I know where you are. I've driven every square inch of this state, and so I know how it is to be out there and not have the support services of, you know, towns and you know, emergency services. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being here today and telling your story. And we're going to keep working on this to make sure you get that school. So thank you.
Yeah, and the amazing thing that we found, you know, going through this this episode is, you know, this isn't a tribal thing. This is a Nevada thing. This is rural Nevada. I mean, the schools, as you drive around the state, they're old, and I don't know what is going to happen. But there's, you know, like I mentioned, White Pine, you know, that, you know, there's many like we're fortunate. We're the fortunate ones. We, you know, we got gifted the bill, and we got gifted the monies, and, you know, people like this are going to guarantee that it's the right dollar spent.
Well, again, we really appreciate it, and we're standing with you, and being so optimistic that much needed school will be built for those Nevadans who are such an important part of our state. So it was an honor to support it, and certainly, Mr. Chairman, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions, we just say thank you.
Thank you for having us. Just very briefly, yes, we did get the 5-2 vote.
Name, please, for the
Will
record.
Adler
You
for the
know,
record.
yes,
Sorry.
Yes, you know that.
I was already
you
called
know that.
out. Yeah.
You know that.
Early in the session still, but yes, Will Adler for the record. But I just wanted to say, you know, to the chairman's comments and everyone else's, this is a whole Nevada effort and a whole Nevada effort to get this school here, and it's a whole Elko effort too in some ways. The school district did step forward and agreed to the contractor's bid, but that bid did not come together on its own. Actually, we've seen the whole community come together, be it the concrete contractor or the framer, and they all have actually tried to lower their bids to the point to get it in under that budget we had for the school. There are some overcharges and some cost overruns, and we don't have a football field yet, but we are not going to stop until we have the whole of the school, and we're working on every angle we can to achieve that. But thank you guys again for the efforts of 2023, and we wouldn't be here without you. So thank you again, and for everything, really.
So, you know, he mentioned that. So that's the brick and mortar portion of the school. I mean, we had we don't. It's not going to have a parking lot. You know, it's not going to have a bus building or a bus barn. In the beginning, it's not going to have a football field. But you know, we are working other avenues. You know, we are going to put some tribal funding. We're partnering with the state of Idaho as well. We're talking to some mining industry. You know, one of the mining companies from Elko, Nevada, Nevada Gold Mines, we're going to a meeting, and they're going to try to help us get a rock crusher so we can crush all of our aggregate, which is going to save about $2.5 million in the trucking of gravel. So, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Our people in the tribe have just really been doing amazing things to the progression of this school to make sure that it's ready, and that when a contractor gets there, because they can't go home, right? A lot of them bid in the beginning, and no one came in because they were going to try to go back and forth, and then it was millions of dollars in fuel, and, you know, time wasted, 4 hours on the road. So, you know, that was the purchase of the tiny homes to establish that camp, to giving them a welcome atmosphere so we can get this thing done.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like under your leadership, we are well underway, and really appreciate, like I said, very proud of you, and really appreciate your work, Will, in helping to navigate through this. So thank you again for being here, because you made the drive here, so we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Okay, now we're down to the last item on our agenda, and that is public comment. Just as a reminder for those who may not know, members of the public can provide public comment in person or by phone, and they can also submit public comment to the committee email. I'm going to give the phone number for anyone who may be interested in phoning in. That number is 888-475-4499. And then when prompted, provide the meeting ID. That meeting ID is 827-8338-7196, and then press pound. So if you're listening and you'd like to phone in, that is your number. We'll start here in Carson City, and if there's anyone in Vegas, I don't see anyone, but if there's anyone in Vegas, then we'll ask you to come forward at this time as well. All set to go? Thank you, Mr. Eppolito. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm John Eppolito with ProtectNevadaChildren.org. Experts on the left and right are concerned about how the student data and student profiles created by free EdTech vendors may affect the future of our children. These free vendors are paid with student data. Students could use the free EdTech vendor Edmodo for all their subjects, plus there's an embedded social media platform. There were at least 75 million U.S. students using Edmodo, and experts believe they had the most student data and the richest student profiles of any of the free EdTech vendors. Parents will never see any of the student data or profiles Edmodo created about their children. In 2018, Edmodo was sold to the Chinese. We begged WCSD to inform parents. They refused. Instead, they required students to use Edmodo for another year. Most other districts, including CCSD, used Edmodo for much longer. We don't think any district in our state told parents who bought Edmodo. 4 years after China bought Edmodo, they shut it down, 2022. At a U.S. congressional hearing titled, "How Emerging Technology Affects Student Privacy," law professor Joel Reidenberg from Fordham testified, quote, "We are going to see the merger of student data gathered in the classroom to data gathered outside the classroom," end quote. I'll email you the link. Did the Chinese merge Edmodo data with TikTok data? In February 2020, the FBI told us, quote, "The Chinese are building a massive database on every American," end quote. It's too late to affect many of us, but China's database may affect the future of our children and nation. While our leaders are busy fighting, China is playing chess with the future of our children/nation. You are in a position to help protect the future of Nevada students.
Mr. Eppolito, I'm sorry,
Thank
sir, your
you.
time is up. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please go right ahead. State your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Doug Unger, D-O-U-G-U-N-G-E-R, Nevada Faculty Alliance. Thank you, Chair Taylor and Dondero Loop and members of the committee. Following the December 6, 2023 mass shooting on the UNLV campus that murdered 3 faculty members, 2 of whom I knew personally, NCHI followed up with a Chancellor's Ad Hoc Safety and Security Committee to recommend urgently needed improvements and how to fund them, now made a permanent committee by the Regents. I served on that committee for more than a year. I learned a lot. Also, as I prepared for the American Federation of Teachers, a presentation to the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. This nation and our state, incredibly, do not have any set of best practices or even guidelines for higher education nor K-12 districts for active assailant responses. Each district, each NC campus essentially has its own plan, some more effective than others. This is not nearly enough to combat the epidemic of gun violence, murdering our children, teachers, and security officers in our schools. At UNLV, we do not even have doors to classrooms that lock from the inside. That tragic day, shots still firing, teachers had to step out into hallways like sacrificial targets, swipe Marlock cards, then step back in and shut doors behind them. Communications were confusing. No central site to coordinate first responders, no organized messaging or news to inform our campus nor the public. I could go on with examples. NG urgently needs to move faster with these safety improvements and needs the resources in order to do so. For K through 12, I ask this legislature to impanel and fund an interim committee to study and recommend best practices, guidelines, public education, and optimum infrastructure to improve school safety from gun violence statewide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Seeing no one else here in Carson City, I don't think there's anyone in Vegas, but if so, please come forward at this time for public comment. Okay, seeing no one, and AVH, I believe there are no callers currently. Will you please verify that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, AVH, thank you so much. Well, this concludes our meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. And we will see you Wednesday. The next meeting of the Senate Committee on Education will be Wednesday, February something. I have it, 19th. February 19th at 1 p.m. right here, Wednesday. Thank you so much, everybody. Be safe out there.